Welcome everyone to Trend Micro Talks. I am your host, Erin Tomie, and today we're talking to the Zero Day Initiative's Senior Communications Manager, Dustin Childs. Dustin, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Erin. Happy to be here.
Well, I am very happy to have you here, and I would love to start off with you sharing a bit about your role at the Zero Day Initiative and Trend Micro.
Sure. Here within the ZDI, I'm kind of our chief storyteller. So a lot of the blogs, a lot of social media, pretty much anything communications related comes through me. And I'm also the unofficial historian, having been, I'd like to say, in the industry for a while. Others would just say I'm old. So go with that.
Well, Dustin, I know an event that is a big part of the Zero Day Initiative program is PoToOwn. So I would love to talk about what is PoToOwn and why it was first created.
Well, PoToOwn is one of the premier hacking competitions in the world, and we just celebrated our 15th anniversary of it. And it started back in 2007, which, if you go back to then, it was a very different landscape in the security world. If you were alive then, you probably saw commercials with a very cool looking guy saying, "I'm a Mac," and a very nerdy looking guy saying, "and I'm a PC." And that ad campaign for Apple was very effective. And one of the things they talked about was how Macs are so much more secure. However, those of us in the security industry knew that this wasn't quite the truth. So at a conference in Vancouver, the conference organizer took a brand new MacBook and said, "I'm going to put this on the conference network. And if you pwn it, meaning if you hack it, you can own it." And then ZDI, "Would you like to buy the bug?" And we said, "Yes, we'll pay $10,000 for the bug." And that was the very first PoToOwn. And Dino Daizovi worked overnight, and he did pwn the MacBook the next day. And then from that time, it built out year over year over year to now we're a multi-million-dollar competition that happens 3 times a year. And it's been fascinating just to be a part of it and to watch it grow over now 15 years.
Well, during that 15-year history, I'm sure there are many highlights, but what are a few that stand out with you that you could share with the audience?
Some of the most interesting highlights to me are the demonstrations that are a little on the scary side. For example, a few years ago, one of the teams had an exploit where they ran it from a virtual guest, fully patched. Everything in PoToOwn is fully patched, fully up to date. So a fully patched virtual client, fully patched web browser. They browsed to a web page and then took their hands off the keyboard. And from that, they had a series of exploits with no user interaction that ended up executing code on the underlying hypervisor, the host operating system. So they had escaped the web browser, they had escaped the guest operating system, they had escaped the virtual operating system, and had essentially taken over the entire box and all the virtual guests on it through just going to a web page, which was astonishing. That because we've browsed to a web page, and I know in my past there've been plenty of times where it's like, "Oh, I'm a VM, I'm a virtual machine. Let me just detonate this malware. What's the worst that could happen?" Well, it turns out the worst that could happen is now pretty bad. In 2019, we partnered with Tesla, and that was the first time we saw a Tesla hack at the competition. We saw that again this year, and it was really amazing to see people standing outside of the car with the laptop, not connected to anything, and then have the car wipers start going and the lights start flashing, the trunk open, and that was pretty crazy. Some of the browser, it's the exploits in the everyday tools that we use. Those are the ones that really stand out in my mind over the years. And especially like on the mobile phones, we saw some baseband exploits. Like if I'm on my phone, I can choose not to join a Wi-Fi in a coffee shop, or I can choose not to browse to a web page or not answer that SMS. But if I turn my phone on, it's beaconing out for an antenna, and that exploit intercepted that and sent its exploit out there and took over the phone, essentially just by turning on your phone, and you didn't have to do anything from it. So those are the exploits that really stand out to me, where there's no user interaction. It's typical user behavior. And then somehow that threat actor, that bad guy, can take over the target. It's really fascinating to watch. And it's great to be a part of getting those bugs fixed too.
Yeah, I think fascinating but scary is a great way to put it. I know another part of it that I've heard you speak about before is the vendor and researcher relationship, and how that kind of usually was very adversarial, and over time through this program has been able to become a bit more cooperative. Can you speak to that just a little bit?
Sure. Going back in time, I mean, the bug bounty program world today is very accepted and very normalized, but in the mid 2000s, it was a very different world, and the relationship between vendors and independent security researchers and bug bounty programs was, as you say, quite adversarial. And PoToOwn is one of the things that really helped normalize that relationship. Part of what happens at PoToOwn is the contestant will go and they'll demonstrate it live, but then we go off into a separate room and we go through all the details with the competitor. And then we bring in the vendor. So the vendor is there with the competitor in the same room, and they're able to talk through the bug, how it was found, what they were doing, etc. And the vendor started to get a better understanding of where the researchers are coming from. Again, at face to face, sitting down at a table, they're in Vancouver or in Tokyo or wherever else we were, and just kind of talking through it. And it gets a lot easier to be cooperative. And then certain vendors too were able to use the results from PoToOwn to go back to their management and say, see, this was exploited. We need to make these security enhancements and these security upgrades. So that was a great thing too, that we were able to use PoToOwn to help vendors to improve their security. So they saw it kind of as a yearly bellwether. How are we doing? Did we improve enough? Did we not do it? I mean, how have our security initiatives been received? So it was great to work with them and to help them understand that the independent security researcher community can be a resource instead of something to fight against. And PoToOwn, I think, has played a large part of that. Like I said, just being able to get everybody together in the same room and kind of sit down and just talk it through.
Well, I'm sure for you it has been incredibly insightful and rewarding to be a part of that whole 15-year journey. And I am excited but scared to see what could possibly happen in the next 15 years. Dustin, I really appreciate you joining me here on Trend Micro Talks to speak about the Zero Day Initiative and the PoToOwn. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Well, thanks for having me, and same to you, Erin. Have a great one.